And here we arrive at the centerpiece of this huge 8 foot by 4 foot modular board, the Waterfall. This was going to be the key feature of the board in terms of something which is absolutely show-stopping impressive. And honestly, it's one of the best tiles I've ever made. It's one of my favorite things I've made in my entire life. I include my children in that list. Probably not. Anyway, I think it looks fantastic. You can see how well the turntables are smoothly turning that around, not jolty at all. But you've got a couple of different spouts of water coming down. It really sells the idea of motion, but how do we make it? So I started with a whole bunch of offcuts and just kind of gotten to roughly the same height. And then this is 27 minutes of playing around with foam, sped up a lot. I did some drawings prior to this, and I kind of, just had a rough idea what it might look like, but I also kind of just let the foam decide for me to a degree, like just literally just chucking stacks of foam together. Once this is all glued together, which you'll see in a minute, you will understand that it looks absolutely appalling until you do the work on it. So it's the sort of thing where you really do just have to trust the process. So you can see a 10 mil bit of foam at the back for the backboard, and then it's a case of just gluing these all together. So if you're going to use PVA glue like I did, then sanding them first is a good idea. But yeah, I had a rough plan, but also I just wanted to see what it turned out like. I had an idea in my head and I just trusted it. So as you can see, to begin with, I'm literally just stacking up chunks of foam and gluing them, in a big pile, and then I'm gonna put some weight on top in a minute. And that's what you start with. I think a couple of them I ended up going back over with a hot glue gun to make it more secure. But I had an idea of what it was going to be like, and like I said, just trusted the process. So what is the process? So to begin with, I made sure that the bottom of it was flat because I didn't stick it very well. But look at that. That looks terrible. That doesn't look anything like anything. It just looks like I've stacked some foam and glued it together, because that's what I've done. So shaping it into something which is a lot more like a waterfall. So I did a bit of work with a sharp knife, and I did a lot of work with the handheld hot wire cutter. If you don't have one of these, it's a very good investment. I've used it a lot across this board build. But I'm going for some kind of horizontal kind of jiggling and soaring, just trying to create some variation, because ultimately what I wanted these to look like were like pillars that were kind of slaty like the rest of the board. So it can be a lot of the techniques that I've used in the other videos, but to begin with, just trying to blend them into each other to a degree, and as much as possible get it to not look like they are just bits of foam stacked up. So part of that is removing the right angles, and removing the vertical lines where possible, which isn't the easiest thing to do because ultimately they are there. But kind of hacking into that a little bit, and obviously shaping the back piece. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you what I did to just one side, and then you can just use the idea across the rest of it if you're going to make one of these yourself. Um, but yeah, lots and lots and lots of hacking and slashing, trying to keep the knife as horizontal as possible, and it really kind of sells this idea. And then kind of rubbing it with your hand a bit. And then I used an attachment for my hot wire cutter that I don't use very often. I think it might be called a wand. But you'll often see in rock formations that um, you have like a straight line running through it. Sometimes at an angle, but kind of dead straight. That just kind of just cuts through multiple bits of rock, presumably where it's kind of just shifted and um, 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 big bits of rock have shifted and a big thing had fallen out. So I wanted to kind of sell that idea, and also trying to blend the vertical lines so they don't really kind of show up as much by melting them with this kind of same tool. So I did this in a few places in a kind of slightly different angles across this side and across the other side as well, I think. But you can see how easily that just kind of melts straight through. Alarmingly hot. Please don't touch this. Please don't do this if you're a child. It's a very, very useful tool to have. And the one that I got came with this. It's not something that you had to buy extra. But that as a thing, combined with the hacking, the slashing, and just some random carving, ended up with that looking really genuinely quite a lot like what I think rock looks like. I did look on Google. I was like following a rough thing about what rocks look like. And I think, to be honest, like I said, I think I nailed it. So that is what it looked like once I'd done the entire thing. So you can see on the right-hand side there, there's a couple of big gaps where I went with the hot wire wand thing. But this stage is about painting it. Now this is black paint with PVA glue, and went across the entire thing, getting into all of the nooks and crannies, because we want to seal this nicely. And also, as you're doing this, and I did this quite roughly, and when I say roughly, I mean aggressively, it does pull out more of the foam, which creates more random variations in the surface. So that is what it looked like with the black coat done. You see it dries better in some places, and obviously that didn't quite get into every single detail. Not the best lighting for this, but this is me going across the whole thing with a light grey, and just trying to hit the surface. So going, if I hit the upper surfaces, so going in all directions with the brush, and just making sure that I'm going across the entire thing, so it's kind of highlighting all of the different raised areas. So this was a fairly lengthy process going across the whole thing, so I'm kind of speeding it up, and that's what it looked like. I mean, that, just like that, is fine. You can see how already it's gone from stack of foam to actually looking like a rock formation. And did the same thing with white. I think I'd done it at this stage. I can't remember, but I did a white dry brush working downwards. Now on to attaching this and making the water area. So I lined it up with the back of a 30 centimeter tile, drew around the edge of where it was going to be at the back, and also this is going to be joining on to the river system, so I had to mark 10 centimeters in from each edge so that anything I cut out lined up. And then, sure enough, got my hot wire cutter out and did just that, keeping it the wire at an angle so it all joined up really, really nicely. And there you go. That's what it's starting to come together. And here I went through and just did the same hacking and slashing process of getting the foam to look more slaty in exactly the same way as I did on the higher rocks, and did a bit of kind of carving and stuff there, and that's what that ended up looking like. And to glue that on, just used some PVA glue, so covered the whole thing, brushed it off, put it down, and then put some weight on top so that it was not going to be going anywhere. Once that was dry, I then got the same black paint and PVA mix and covered the whole thing. That was going to be rocky. Some parts didn't need doing, and also did the inside of the water's going to be, and then did the same grey kind of over painting process, scribbling I think it's called. So you can see how just very quickly all that rock detail comes up. And then the top part where grass was going to be, I base coated that with brown paint and a PVA glue mix, just like I have on the entire rest of the board. Then it was time to glue this on. You can see just how horrendous this looks from the underneath, which is a good thing that no one ever sees it. So hot glue gun, making sure this is on a high temperature so it doesn't set very quickly, which is why I'm using my cheap one, because it's only got very hot. And then making sure that's nicely aligned, spending some time when you get a little bit of time using the hot glue gun, and that means you can then kind of get that into place and then push it down and hold it for a little bit. And what did I do next? Oh yeah, I'd made another rock which the water was going to fall down onto, so I put that into place as well, which was made in exactly the same way, and then did the grey paint on that too. Then I went on and did the white dry brushing on the that rock and the edges, as you can see, and then all the kind of rock detail was and brought to life entirely, and really looks like rock, and even more so once you get the other colors in. Now, the important things here, we're going to start looking towards resin pours. So in exactly the same way as I did the river tiles before, I'm using an acetate sheet to block off where the epoxy resin is going to be. So putting that there, using UV resin along the edge, and then setting that to form a barrier between the back of the waterfall and the void behind, so that we can pour resin in there and it can just sit there. And obviously there's also gaps between the foam, which we don't want resin to leak down into, so sealing that entirely. So we used quite a lot of UV resin on this tile, as you'll see as we go on. Yeah, so making sure it's all nicely set, and Then moving on to the barrier on the front, which is done in exactly the same way, and the camera angle is terrible, but yeah, exactly the same thing. Acetate sheet, UV resin, torch, filled it in, done. Now I'm talking about goodenoughscenery.com. If you're looking like this is way too much effort and you'd like me to make something like this for you or an entire board for you, then head to goodenoughscenery.com, fill in the contact form or email me, and we can discuss what your project would be like. Now on to the waterfalls, and these are mostly made out of what I would call cling film. I think we will call it saran wrap or cellophane, but whatever you call it, it's this plastic sheeting stuff that you wrap food up with. So the very top of the waterfall, we want to have some there, because once this is kind of scrunched up, it can be made to look like it might be some water all kind of bundling up as it's rushing through and trying to get through to falling down. The down part of the waterfall done in the same way, so making sure it's kind of cut to a certain width, and then we're just roughly working out where this is going to go down in terms of length. And I played around for quite a while in terms of the direction that this was going to go down. But obviously the height was going to be determined, but it was like the direction that was the difficult thing. And then I did exactly the same thing on the other side, so cut it to a kind of a width, and then kind of bundle it up a little bit to make it look a bit more watery, and just kind of hold it in place, because it gives you an idea. This isn't going to be exactly what it looks like, but it gives you an idea of what it's going to look like. So after playing around, I mean, I cut a lot of footage out of this, but eventually I did find something that I was happy with. Now, these bits of cling film at the top aren't just there for show, they are also providing a dam for the front, because that top part will have epoxy resin poured into it, and we don't want that leaking down. Most resin takes 24 hours to set properly. Some takes even longer than that, depending on which one you get. So you don't want that dripping down. You want that to be held in place. So this cling film is doing the same job as the acetate sheet at the back, but also providing something which makes it look a bit more like water. So it's a bit of a messy job. I probably should have had gloves on, but I didn't. And once they're held in place a little bit, you can start building up the resin on top of that as well if you need to. Also using the UV resin around the edge of the bottom of the foam, because when that, I have had it in the past where resin has leaked underneath the foam, between the foam and the board, and it's an absolute disaster to sort out. So you don't want that to be happening. You can see there, I haven't shown this in the video, I did countersink some magnets to put some flock on top. That is covered in every other single video in the series, so I'm not going over it again. But the flocking process was very quick, because there isn't a whole lot of area to be flocked. So just with the same flock as the edge on of every other tile, so it can match up with all them, and then a little bit on top as well, and a little bit in the closer to the water's edge. Now, it's important that you do all of the flocking and get it kind of in place first, because you don't want to be doing flock afterwards. Now we've got some stones here, and just filling that in to make it look more like a kind of riverbed, and then moving on to the resin pour itself. So I'm not showing you how I mix this up. It's a 50-50 thing. You follow the instructions. I put a tiny bit of color into it, high jazz, and then just poured it in. So just going very, very slowly with the top bit to make sure we're not going to like overfill it. And then just filling that up. So I did 2 lots of this. This is just showing you the first one. And next time you see it, that's with the second pour done, and with the resin now set. Now with these bits of cling film, which I've kind of got to the right size, it's now time to make them look like waterfalls. So to begin with, just using the UV resin once again to attach that to the top. So the good thing about working with the UV resin and cling film is that the cling film is obviously translucent, which means that the UV light gets through, so you can use it more as a glue. It doesn't work so well as a glue another way, and see if I can give it a little tug there to make sure that it is firmly in place. And then I decided in my wisdom that it would be really good if this was like a split waterfall on this side. So I cut down the whole thing lengthways, and then separated the 2 halves to go into slightly different routes, because when I looked at it and I thought about the water flowing down, that is what I thought would happen with the water. So starting with the back one, I realized it would kind of go along this rock at the side. It would then hit some rocks on the left and then kind of bounced down a bit. So I stuck it down to this path on the right a little bit, and then started working about where it would probably fall based upon how I was guessing how fast it would move. You kind of just have to use your imagination a little bit. So I actually pushed the cling film into the foam a little bit. And you see I'm kind of twisting it up a little bit there to make it a thinner stream, because I didn't want it to be look as much volume of water as the other part of it. But yeah, just kind of played around with it, and once I had it, so you see me pushing it into the foam there. Once I had it in a position that I felt like that's what the stream of water would look like, I then set about using the UV resin to attach it firmly to the wall, or I keep calling it the wall, the rock face on the left-hand side, as well as doing that at the bottom as well. Just trying to work out how that stream of water would flow. Spent a lot of time on this, especially considering it's the sort of thing that's, when you see it, it's an afterfall. I mean, the bigger falls obviously are much more impressive, and this kind of tiny fall at the back, I spent a long time working on it, a lot of time thinking about it. It's the sort of thing that you just don't have to do. You know, you could just do one single stream of this, and it would look great. And it's the thing with good enough scenery, you go to the level of detail that you want to go to. So just one of these look great. I decided to go for free, and I'm glad that I did. But yeah, you can see just how much effort I'm putting into this thing. And then I went on to the next one. Now, one of the big problems I had with this is it just didn't feel like it was on the right trajectory. So I kind of knew where I wanted it to land, and I stuck it down, as you can see. So I kind of, kind of bundle it up a little bit. So I then set about hardening this cling film by dripping a lot of UV resin down. So putting some resin on, and then setting it as it's dripping down. It sets like within 5 to 10 seconds. So you can see it's kind of dribbling down there, and then setting it as it goes down. But it's still not solid, and it's still not on the right trajectory, I didn't think. Look, you can see it's going in a straight line. That's not how gravity works. So I realized that it was going to have to be pulled out a little bit in order for that to work properly. So what I did was I got a bit of spare foam, and then just dropped it a couple of times, I think, but eventually slid it up into a position where the trajectory of the water felt more like a parabola. It's not exactly a parabola because it doesn't go up and down again, but you can see how it's now curving like it would if water was coming out something fast. It goes forwards and down. It doesn't just, curves down. It doesn't go down in a slanted angle. So yeah, spent some time on that, but lots of resin on all the way down until, you eventually got to the point where you kind of tap it and it sounded like you were tapping solid plastic. And a few drips went in a few different places as well, and I decided I wasn't mad about that. I think it actually worked quite well. So you can see that's actually solid as I'm pressing it now. But the other one wasn't done yet. But this was done in entirely the same way, I think. So once again, a bit of UV resin at the top, just to make sure that it's stuck firmly in place. And then from there, going through the same process of getting it nice and firmly there, and then working out where it was going to land, and then bunching it up at the bottom, providing a little bit of width for it as well by spreading it apart. So first of all, you see me just sticking it in place, and then bunching up the bottom of it and covering the bottom of it in UV resin, covering the front of it in UV resin, and then doing the same thing here, as you can see, to change the trajectory that the water is coming out at, so that that the fall of it looks right. And yeah, again, spent a lot of time just with UV resin dripping down the cling film and setting as it falls. Yeah, could have chosen a better camera angle for this. My hand is in the way a lot, but hopefully, having seen the other one, this all kind of makes sense to you. And that's what it looked like. There's a very close up of it all. You can see it's does actually look completely solid in that, which is good. Then I set about using some Vallejo diorama water texture across not just the water surfaces as I did on the lake and with the river, but I also use this on the cling film as well, just because it added an extra level of water detail. I mean, it's literally meant to make water texture, so why wouldn't I use that? Now, with the lower part of it, I was trying to just think about how the water would flow once the waterfall hit the water below, what sort of ripples would be formed, and kind of had kind of waves forming, or at least that's what I was trying to make it look like. I also put some of the water texture stuff on the surfaces of the rocks too, because I thought they would be wet as well. Next up, wanted to make it look more foamy, so I got some Valhallan Blizzard from Citadel, and this is a snow thing for putting snow on bases. I've used it on the Winged Hive Tyrant before. Really, really great stuff. You just kind of smear it across and it looks like snow. But rather than looking like snow here, I'm using this anywhere where I feel like lots of water would have gathered. So the main places are the top of the waterfall, the bottom of the waterfall, and if you look at waterfalls themselves, sometimes water just it feels a little bit more bubbly as it's falling down if it's hit something or something. So anywhere where, I don't know why I tapped it there, weird behavior. Anywhere that it looks like there would be bubbles forming or anything like that, this Valhallan Blizzard works really well. So a few places on the falls themselves, but a lot of time spent just adding bits at the bottom and then going, no, it probably need more than that. No, it probably need more than that, because it's quite a cascade of water, that one on the right in particular. So I did end up using quite a bit of this, but I think that the effect of that was that it looked really, really awesome. And then did the same thing on the other side, but obviously it's less of a cascade of water, so less going on. You can also see on the one on the right that I actually used a bit more cling film at the back, which I added on later, but in exactly the same way. Now, this was to make the the waterfall rock faces look more mossy. So you've got some coarse flock of some description and mixed it with PVA glue, and then chose some areas that I thought would have a higher amount of water on, so therefore a higher amount of growth, and then put some PVA glue on those as well. So it was on quite a few different places. Then once I had that PVA glue on the rock surfaces, I then went about using a brush just to kind of smear this moss type stuff on as well. Now, when I first put this on, I was like, oh my God, I've ruined it. But if you do something like this, be aware that the glue will dry clearer or darker, so it doesn't end up looking exactly like I put it on here. Because if it ended up looking like it looks as I'm putting it on here, I would have been very, very disappointed. And so you can see in the final product that it does not look exactly like this, thankfully. So please trust the process. And if you're not sure, try it out somewhere else first. Then I got these vine things, which I got from Temu. Apparently it's Temu, I don't know. But very, very cheap. They hook on absolutely everything. Unless your skin is entirely smooth, it just catches on your skin. But really, really great things. I use these in the lake as well. But essentially, I covered a lot of the rock face in PVA glue, and then just hooked these vines over various different bits and pieces and rocks and stuff. Also use it to cover gaps between the rocks. I pushed it in with some tweezers, as you can see there, to kind of wedge it in a bit further, but kind of sticking it on, but also allowing them to kind of hang down, because I think that's kind of what vines look like. And here we are, the finished waterfall. I've been speaking for 23 minutes non-stop. Haven't I done well? But honestly, I'm I'm struggling to criticize it much. I think the moss could have gone a bit better, but in terms of the water, in terms of the waterfall, in terms of the rock carving, I couldn't be much happier. So yeah, there's another look at it spinning around there. Absolutely love it. So if you've enjoyed this and want to show your appreciation, you can go to patreon.com/goodenough and join as a phone funding friend for as little as $2. If you want your own board, head to goodenoughscenery.com and drop me a message. Let me know what you would like your dream board to look like. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you for another video soon.